Before Muhammad Ali became the greatest, there was a man so terrifying that opponents quit before the fight even started. A man who learned to fight in prison. A man whose fists were registered as lethal weapons. A man who made grown men weep with fear just by staring at them. His name was Charles Sonny Liston. And in 1962, he was the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. No one, absolutely no one believed he could ever be beaten. Sonny Liston's life was a nightmare from the very beginning. Born in Arkansas to a sharecropper who had 25 children, Liston grew up in grinding poverty. His father beat him regularly with whips and straps meant for horses. By the time he was 13, Sonny had scars across his back that would never heal. He couldn't read. He couldn't write. The only thing he learned was that the world was cruel, and the only way to survive was to be crueler. By his late teens, Liston had become an enforcer for the street Louis mob. He broke legs, he collected debts, he made people disappear. When he was arrested for armed robbery and sent to the Missouri State Penitentiary, no one expected him to become anything more than a career criminal. But in prison, something changed. A chaplain noticed Liston's enormous frame 6'1", over 200 pounds of pure muscle, and suggested he try boxing. Sonny Liston had found his calling. By 1962, Sonny Liston had compiled a professional record that read like a horror story. 35 wins, 1 loss, 23 knockouts, but the numbers didn't tell the real story. The real story was in the eyes of his opponents. The way they looked at him across the ring, the way their legs trembled, the way some of them simply gave up. Cleveland Williams, one of the hardest punchers in heavyweight history, was knocked unconscious in 3 rounds. Zora Foley, a slick, skilled boxer, lasted 3 rounds before being destroyed. Eddie Machen, undefeated in 24 fights, was so thoroughly beaten that he never recovered psychologically. But it was the championship fight that truly terrified the world. Floyd Patterson was the heavyweight champion, a skilled, intelligent boxer, a gentleman, a hero to many Americans. He was supposed to be the man who stopped Liston. The fight lasted 2 minutes and 6 seconds. Liston hit Patterson with a left hook that lifted the champion off his feet. Patterson crumbled. He tried to get up, but his legs wouldn't work. His brain was sending signals, but his body had already surrendered. First round knockout. The rematch was even worse. This time, Patterson lasted 2 minutes and 10 seconds. 4 seconds longer than the first fight. That was the extent of his improvement. After the second Patterson destruction, a reporter asked Liston about potential challengers. Liston's response became legendary. "There ain't nobody left," he growled. "I done beat everybody. I'm the baddest man on the planet and everybody knows it." He wasn't bragging. He was stating a fact. Every top heavyweight in the world had either been destroyed by Liston or refused to fight him. Managers pulled their fighters from potential matchups. Promoters couldn't find opponents. Sonny Liston was so dominant, so terrifying, so utterly unbeatable, that boxing itself didn't know what to do with him. Then a loudmouth kid from Louisville started making noise. His name was Cassius Marcellus Clay Jr. He was 21 years old. He had never fought anyone remotely close to Liston's caliber, and he was telling anyone who would listen that he was going to destroy the most feared man in boxing history. Everyone thought he was crazy. Everyone thought it was a publicity stunt. Everyone thought Sonny Liston would kill him. Everyone was wrong. While Sonny Liston was terrifying the boxing world into silence, one voice refused to be quiet. One voice got louder and louder and louder. One voice said things about Sonny Liston that no one had ever dared to say. And that voice belonged to a 21-year-old kid who seemed to have a death wish. Cassius Clay had a plan. After winning the Olympic gold medal in 1960, he had turned professional and compiled a perfect record: 19 wins, 0 losses. He was fast, flashy, and incredibly skilled. But he wasn't famous. At least, not famous enough. Boxing was a business. Title shots went to the fighters who sold tickets. And to sell tickets, you needed people to care either because they loved you or because they hated you. Sonny Liston was hated and feared in equal measure. Cassius Clay needed to find a different angle. So he did something nobody expected. He started talking. It started with poetry. Clay would appear at press conferences and recite verses he had written himself, predicting exactly how and when he would defeat his opponents. "This guy must be done. I'll stop him in 1. He'll fall in 5. He won't survive. And then, impossibly, he would back it up. His predictions came true with eerie accuracy. He said Archie Moore would fall in 4. Moore fell in 4. He said Charlie Powell would go in 3. Powell went in 3. The media was fascinated. The public was divided. Some loved him, his confidence, his charisma, his magnetic personality. Others hated him. They called him arrogant, disrespectful, a loudmouth who didn't know his place. But nobody could ignore him. And that was exactly what Cassius Clay wanted. In 1963, Cassius Clay turned his attention to Sonny Liston. What happened next was either insanity or genius. Clay started showing up wherever Liston was. At casinos, at restaurants, at press conferences, at Liston's own home. And he wouldn't stop talking. Liston is too ugly to be champion. Look at that face. He's so ugly when he cries the tears run down the back of his head. Liston is too slow. He punches like an old woman. I'm gonna dance around him so fast he'll think there's 4 of me. I'm gonna whoop that big ugly bear. I'm young, I'm pretty, and I'm gonna be the new heavyweight champion of the world. Reporters couldn't believe what they were hearing. This kid was openly mocking the most dangerous man in boxing. One night, Clay took it even further. He showed up at Sonny Liston's house at 3 o'clock in the morning with a bus full of reporters. He stood on Liston's lawn, screaming at the top of his lungs. Come out, Liston, come out and face me. I'm gonna whoop you right here on your own lawn. The neighborhood lights started clicking on, dogs barked, curtains parted. Liston came to his window, looking down at this lunatic on his property. For a long moment, the champion just stared. Then he shook his head and went back to bed. Later, when asked about the incident, Liston said something chilling. That kid is crazy, and when I get him in the ring, I'm gonna hurt him bad, real bad. What the world didn't understand was that Cassius Clay wasn't crazy. He was calculating. Every outburst, every poem, every late night stunt, every crazy moment was carefully designed to achieve one goal. Get inside Sonny Liston's head. Clay understood something fundamental about Liston. The champion had built his career on intimidation. He won fights before they started because his opponents were already terrified. But Clay wasn't terrified. Or at least, he wasn't going to show it. By acting crazy, by appearing fearless to the point of insanity, Clay was removing Liston's greatest weapon. You can't intimidate someone who seems too crazy to be scared. There was another element to Clay's strategy. Anger. Clay wasn't just making Liston uncomfortable, he was making Liston angry. Sonny Liston had never been disrespected like this, not by opponents, not by anyone. He had spent his whole life being the one who intimidated others. Now this kid was calling him ugly, slow, old. Every insult burrowed under Liston's skin. Every confrontation made the champion more furious. And angry fighters make mistakes. Cassius Clay knew that when the bell rang, Sonny Liston wouldn't be thinking clearly. He'd be thinking about revenge. In November 1963, the fight was officially announced. Cassius Clay versus Sonny Liston. The 25th of February, 1964. Miami Beach, Florida. For the heavyweight championship of the world. The odds were staggering. Liston was a 7-1 favorite. 43 of 46 boxing writers picked Liston to win. Most predicted a first or second round knockout. Some genuinely worried that Clay might be seriously injured, or worse. Jimmy Cannon, one of America's most respected sports writers, called the fight a disgrace and said the boxing commission was guilty of criminal negligence for allowing it to happen. The world was certain they were about to watch a young man get destroyed. They had no idea they were about to witness history. The weigh-in was scheduled for the morning of February 25th. It was supposed to be a routine procedure. Both fighters step on the scale, verify their weights, pose for photos, and leave. What happened instead would become one of the most legendary moments in sports history. And it would make everyone, including Sonny Liston, question whether Cassius Clay had completely lost his mind. The morning of the fight, Cassius Clay's heart rate was measured at 120 beats per minute. Resting. Not exercising, not sparring, not even warming up. Just sitting in a chair, his heart pounding like a jackhammer. The doctor looked concerned. Son, are you feeling all right? Clay looked at him with wild eyes. I'm ready to rumble. The doctor didn't know whether to laugh or call the fight off. The Miami Beach Convention Hall was packed with reporters, photographers, and boxing officials. Sonny Liston arrived first. He stepped on the scale with the calm confidence of a man who knew he was about to destroy someone. 218 pounds of solid muscle. His face was expressionless. His eyes were cold. When asked about the fight, he gave a short answer. "It won't go long." The reporters nodded. They agreed. Then Cassius Clay arrived. And all hell broke loose. Clay burst into the room like a tornado. He was wearing a blue jacket with the words "Beer Huntin" stitched on the back. His entourage struggled to keep up with him. And he was screaming, "There he is! There's the ugly bear! I'm gonna eat him alive!" He lunged toward Liston, his handlers barely holding him back. "You're scared, Liston. I can see it in your eyes. You're an ugly old man and I'm gonna destroy you." Liston stared at him with undisguised contempt. Clay kept going. "Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. Your hands can't hit what your eyes can't see." He was jumping up and down, his voice was cracking, veins were popping in his neck, his eyes were rolling wildly. "I'm the greatest! I'm the king! You're nothing but an ugly chump!" In all the chaos, something remarkable was happening. Something the cameras captured, but the reporters missed. Sonny Liston was confused. For the first time in his life, Liston didn't know what to do. He had intimidated hundreds of men, he had made champions crumble with a stare, but this kid was acting like a lunatic. Was he really this crazy? Was he on drugs? Was he having a mental breakdown? Liston couldn't figure it out. And that uncertainty, that moment of doubt, was exactly what Cassius Clay wanted. When Clay stepped on the scale, the chaos momentarily paused. 210 pounds. 8 pounds lighter than the champion. But the real story was his heart rate. The fight doctor, Dr. Alexander Robbins, pulled Clay aside for a medical check. His pulse was 120 beats per minute, more than double the normal resting rate. Dr. Robbins was alarmed. A heart rate that high could indicate serious anxiety, cardiac issues, or genuine instability. "The fight may need to be postponed," he warned. "This young man appears to be in genuine distress." The boxing commission held an emergency meeting. For 30 minutes, the fight hung in the balance. 1 hour later, the doctor checked Clay's pulse again. 54 beats per minute. Perfectly calm, athlete-level relaxation. Dr. Robbins was stunned. "I don't understand," he said. "An hour ago you were off the charts. Now you're calmer than anyone I've ever examined." Clay smiled that magnetic knowing smile. "Doc, I was just scaring Sonny Liston, that's all. You ain't gotta worry about me." The entire weigh-in performance had been an act. The screaming, the wild eyes, the apparent insanity. All calculated, all deliberate, all designed to plant one seed in Sonny Liston's mind. This kid might actually be crazy enough to be dangerous. In his dressing room, Clay returned to his normal self. Calm, focused, methodical. His trainer, Angelo Dundee, had been with him for years. He knew the difference between Clay's public persona and his private reality. "You scared half the reporters out there," Dundee said. "Good," Clay replied. "That means I scared Liston too. Did you see his face when you rushed him? For just a second he didn't know what to do." Clay nodded. "That's all I needed. 1 second of doubt. Because that 1 second, it's gonna follow him into that ring tonight." As evening approached, the atmosphere in Miami shifted. The convention hall was sold out. 8,300 seats, every one filled. Millions more would watch on closed-circuit television across America. The betting lines hadn't moved. Liston was still a massive favorite. The experts still predicted a slaughter. But something was different now. Something that no one could quite put their finger on. There was a tremor in the air. A feeling that maybe, just maybe, everyone had underestimated the loudmouth kid from Louisville. The bell for round 1 was minutes away. Sonny Liston, the monster, the destroyer, the most feared heavyweight in history, stood in his corner. Cassius Clay, the poet, the prophet, the self-proclaimed greatest, stood in his. Every expert in the world said this fight would end quickly and brutally. They were half right. It would end quickly. But not the way anyone expected. The bell rang, and everything the boxing world believed was about to be shattered. Sonny Liston charged forward like a bull. His strategy was simple. Overwhelm the kid immediately, one big punch, end it fast, make an example. But Cassius Clay wasn't there. He was moving, dancing, circling. Liston threw a massive left hook, the same punch that had knocked out Floyd Patterson in one round. It hit nothing but air. Liston threw a straight right, the same punch that had ended a dozen careers. Air. The crowd gasped. They had never seen anyone move like this. Clay was poetry in motion, his feet gliding across the canvas like he was on ice. He was there, then he wasn't. He appeared on Liston's left, then vanished and reappeared on his right, and then he started punching back. Jab, jab, jab. 3 quick shots to Liston's face. Not power punches, stinging jabs, each one snapping Liston's head back. The champion's eyes widened. What the hell is happening? By the end of round 1, something unprecedented was unfolding. Cassius Clay had won the round. Decisively. In the 350 previous rounds that Sonny Liston had fought as a professional, he had never, not once, lost a round this badly. His corner was concerned. He's fast, Liston's trainer said. Faster than anyone we've seen. I'll get him, Liston growled. He can't run all night. But he was wrong. The second round was worse for Liston. Clay wasn't just avoiding punches anymore. He was making Liston miss by inches, sometimes by centimeters, and countering immediately. Every time Liston lunged, he was punished. Jab to the face, hook to the body, right hand over the top, and through it all, Clay kept talking. Is that all you got? You're too slow, old man. I told everyone I'm the greatest. The crowd was in disbelief. The loudmouth was backing up every word. Sonny Liston had never experienced anything like this. His whole life, people had feared him. In the ring, he was the predator. His opponents were prey. But tonight, the roles were reversed. He was chasing a ghost. Every punch missed. Every strategy failed. Every trick in his considerable arsenal was useless against this. What even was this kid? By round 3, Liston's punches were getting wilder. He was swinging for the knockout, desperate to end this embarrassment. But desperation is the enemy of precision. And Clay exploited every mistake. In the third round, Clay opened a cut under Liston's left eye. The champion was bleeding. Sonny Liston, the destroyer of worlds, was bleeding from a wound inflicted by a two-year-old kid that nobody had given a chance. When Liston returned to his corner after round 3, his trainers were in shock. What's happening out there? They demanded. Liston couldn't answer. He didn't know. By round 4, the impossible was becoming undeniable. Cassius Clay was winning. Not just winning, dominating. The punch statistics were staggering. Clay was landing at will. Liston was hitting nothing but air. The champion's face was swelling. His left eye was nearly closed from the cut. At ringside, the reporters who had predicted a massacre were rewriting their stories in real time. I don't believe what I'm seeing, one veteran journalist whispered to another. Nobody's gonna believe this, his colleague replied. But the fight wasn't over. And in the next round, everything was about to change. At the end of round 4, Cassius Clay returned to his corner, floating on the edge of the greatest upset in boxing history. But when he sat down on his stool, something was wrong. His eyes were burning. He couldn't see. And Sonny Liston was about to get the chance he needed. I can't see! Cut the gloves off! The fight is over! Cassius Clay was screaming. His eyes were burning like they were filled with acid. He couldn't open them. And the most important fight of his life was about to slip away. When Clay sat down after round 4, something was immediately wrong. He was rubbing his eyes furiously. Tears were streaming down his face. His cornerman rushed to examine him. What's wrong? What happened? My eyes, Clay shouted. Something's in my eyes. I can't see nothing. Angelo Dundee leaned in close. He could see it. Clay's eyes were red and inflamed. Something caustic had gotten into them. But from where? Later, theories would emerge. Some said Liston's handlers had put a coagulant on his gloves to stop the bleeding from the cut, a substance that transferred to Clay's eyes during a clinch. Others suspected something more deliberate. In that moment, it didn't matter. All that mattered was that Cassius Clay was blind. and round 5 was about to start. "Cut the gloves off! I'm not going back out there blind!" Clay was panicking. For the first time all night, the supreme confidence was gone. He couldn't see. He couldn't fight what he couldn't see. This was how people got seriously hurt. This was how people died. Angelo Dundee had approximately 30 seconds to make a decision that would alter the course of boxing history. He grabbed Clay's face with both hands and stared directly into his burning eyes. "You're not quitting. This is what you've worked your whole life for. Get out there and run. Keep moving. Keep your hands up. Your eyes will clear." "But I can't." "Get out there." Dundee pushed him off the stool. The bell rang. Cassius Clay moved to the center of the ring, blinking furiously, eyes streaming with tears, barely able to see the outline of Sonny Liston in front of him. Liston sensed something was wrong. The kid who had been dancing and jabbing and making him look foolish was suddenly standing still, moving awkwardly, not throwing punches. Liston advanced. For 3 agonizing minutes, Cassius Clay fought blind. He relied purely on instinct. On the footwork he had practiced 10,000 times, on the defensive skills drilled into his muscle memory. He kept his hands up, he moved, he survived. When Liston threw punches, Clay could only sense them coming, not see them. Some landed. For the first time all night, Liston was hitting his target. But Clay didn't go down. He wouldn't go down. Years later, Clay would describe this round as the most difficult 3 minutes of his life. "I couldn't see nothing," he recalled. "Just shapes, shadows. I could feel when he was getting close. I could hear his breathing, but I couldn't see him. Every instinct was telling me to quit, to protect myself, to survive. But I knew if I quit, I would never forgive myself, and I would never get this chance again." So he fought, blind, scared, in pain, but still fighting. Somewhere in the middle of round 5, something miraculous happened. Clay's eyes began to clear. The tears were washing out whatever substance had contaminated them. Slowly, the burning subsided. The blur began to resolve. By the end of the round, he could see again. When the bell rang to end round 5, Cassius Clay returned to his corner with something new in his eyes. Not pain, not fear, rage. "I can see now," he told Dundee, "and I'm gonna make him pay." Angelo Dundee looked at his fighter. The panic was gone. The doubt was gone. In its place was cold, focused fury. "2 more rounds," Dundee said. "Go get him!" Clay nodded. He had survived the worst moment of his boxing career. Now it was time to finish what he started. Round 6 was about to begin. Sonny Liston had thrown everything he had at the blinded challenger. It hadn't been enough. And now, with clear eyes and renewed determination, Cassius Clay was about to deliver the final blow. The question wasn't whether he could win anymore. The question was whether Liston had anything left. When the bell rang for round 6, Sonny Liston rose from his stool like a man walking to his own execution. He didn't know it yet, but his reign as champion was already over. Cassius Clay exploded from his corner with a fury that shocked everyone in the arena. The cautious defensive fighter from round 5 was gone. In his place was a man possessed. Jab, 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 right hand, left hook, jab, right hand. The combinations came in blinding flurries. Liston tried to cover up, tried to weather the storm, but there was no escape. Clay's eyes were clear now, and everything he had held back all the frustration of fighting blind, all the fear of nearly losing his dream, all the years of preparation and sacrifice came pouring out through his fists. Liston was being battered. His face was a mess. Both eyes were swelling shut. The cut under his left eye had reopened and was bleeding freely. For the first time in his career, Sonny Liston looked old. Tired. Beaten. The round was complete domination. Clay threw over 50 punches. More than half of them landed. Liston threw maybe 10 in response, most missing badly. When the bell rang to end, round 6, Liston staggered back to his corner like a zombie. His trainers tried to rally him. "You gotta go out there. You gotta keep fighting." But Sonny Liston had seen enough. When the bell rang for round 7, Cassius Clay bounced to his feet, ready for more. But across the ring, Sonny Liston didn't move. He stayed on his stool. His corner was shouting at him, pleading with him, but the champion just sat there. Then he spit out his mouthpiece. The referee walked over. Words were exchanged. And then the referee walked to the center of the ring and raised his arms. The fight was over. Sonny Liston had quit on his stool. Cassius Clay was the new heavyweight champion of the world. What happened next became one of the most iconic moments in sports history. Cassius Clay leaped onto the ropes, arms raised to heaven, screaming at the top of his lungs, "I shook up the world, I shook up the world." He turned to the press section, the same reporters who had predicted his destruction, who had called the fight a disgrace, who had given him no chance. "I told you, I told all of you, I'm the greatest, I'm the king of the world." The crowd was in stunned silence. Then the cheers began slowly at first, then building to a roar. They had just witnessed the impossible. A 2-year-old loudmouth had dethroned the most feared fighter in boxing history. And he had done it exactly the way he said he would. But the night wasn't over. The next morning, Cassius Clay held a press conference. The reporters expected celebration, victory laps, more poetry and predictions. What they got was something different. Cassius Clay announced that he had converted to Islam, that he was now a member of the Nation of Islam, that he was rejecting his slave name, that he would no longer be called Cassius Clay. "My name," he said, "is Muhammad Ali." The boxing world was shocked. The media was hostile. Many fans turned against him. But Muhammad Ali didn't care. He had proven something that night in Miami. Not just that he could beat Sonny Liston, but that he could define himself on his own terms. "I don't have to be what you want me to be," he said. "I'm free to be what I want." This would become the central philosophy of his life. The belief that a man has the right to define himself, the refusal to accept limitations imposed by others, the conviction that impossible is just a word used by people who lack the courage to try. Years later, when people asked Muhammad Ali about that night in Miami, he always returned to the same theme. "Everybody told me I couldn't beat Sonny Liston. Everybody. The experts, the reporters, the odds makers, my own people sometimes. But I didn't listen to them. I listened to myself. I knew what I could do. I knew what I was willing to sacrifice. I knew how bad I wanted it." That's the difference between the people who make history and the people who just watch it. The people who make history believe in themselves when no one else does. The stolen bicycle had led to a boxing gym. The boxing gym had led to the Olympics. The Olympics had led to this moment. A 2-year-old kid standing on the ropes screaming to the world that he was the greatest. And he was right. Not because of the belt around his waist, but because of the fire in his heart. The same fire that burned when he was 12 years old, crying over a stolen bike. The same fire that drove him to run at 5 a.m. while others slept. The same fire that made him stare into the eyes of the most dangerous man in boxing and say, "I'm gonna whoop you." Muhammad Ali didn't just shake up the world that night. He showed the world what's possible when a human being refuses to accept the limitations others place on them. Impossible is just a big word thrown around by small men who find it easier to live in the world they've been given than to explore the power they have to change it. Impossible is not a fact, it's an opinion. Impossible is potential. Impossible is temporary. Impossible is nothing.